behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened.
Hello and welcome to the GTM podcast. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with us. It is a beautiful, sunny Monday in Vancouver, Canada. I forgot what day it was, which is shocking when it's a Monday. But it's been a busy couple of weeks. But certainly excited for this episode. I am joined by Amanda Cole. Amanda, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And you just got off of a European flight on Saturday. How's the jet lag treating you so far?
I am still 6 hours ahead, so it's pretty late my time. And I'm not drinking wine, but I still might say anything.
Well, if it's 6 hours ahead, I guess it would be appropriate for you to drink some wine right now. We can make it happen. And so you were in Bratislava, Slovakia. That's pretty cool.
We have a development team and engineering organization in Bratislava, Slovakia. The company that I worked for formerly, Exponea, that was acquired by Blueshift, started in Slovakia. And so we have several hundred people there, and I love visiting. I've been there several times. It's a beautiful, beautiful country right on the Danube. So if you ever do a Danube River cruise, it would certainly be one of the stops.
Beautiful. I'll have to add it to the list. What are the top things to do in Bratislava?
Oh, man. I haven't done a lot of touring because I'm usually there for work, but there is an old town that's really beautiful with a lot of history. It's a several thousand-year-old town, so there's quite a bit of history, and it obviously was in the center oftentimes in World War I and World War II, so they have a lot of different countries that have ruled them at different points. And so, I mean, it really is a very, very fascinating city and country. And then it's 45 minutes outside of Vienna, Austria. So you get to see all of the culture of Vienna and the music and the art of Vienna as well.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it's always amazing when you go to these old European cities and you just realize like how many times it's like changed hands with like rulers and all this stuff. And then we come to like North America and, you know, it's not quite as lengthy of a history, but it's always interesting to read about. But just quickly for the listeners, so Amanda serves as the Chief Marketing Officer at Bloomreach, where she leads the execution of the company's marketing strategy, of course, to drive further business demand and brand awareness. Super passionate marketing professional with over 15 years of experience in helping SaaS companies build impactful brands, communicate differentiated value, and grow high-performing marketing teams. And then you actually previously served as the company's SVP of Global Marketing, having joined in January of 2021 through an acquisition, actually, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And that was at a company called Exponea. And then prior to joining Exponea, you served as the VP of Demand Gen at Blueshift, which is a customer data platform. And before that, served as VP of Marketing Americas and Global Programs at Basware in the financial services sector. So you've had a breadth of different experience. Do you still kind of have that demand gen route? Are you a very like revenue-driven marketer, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very focused in how what marketing does ties back to revenue. We have jobs only when revenue is being created at the company, and that's across the board. And we're obviously, I think, for the most part, for-profit companies when you're in B2B SaaS. And so making sure that the impact of marketing translates into growth for the company is a significant part of where I spend my time.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like there's typically almost like two archetypes of CMOs, some that kind of like come up more product marketing focused, and sometimes they're more like brand awareness, thought leadership-y, and then there's the demand gen folks that are just, you know the importance of that, but then hyper focused on that revenue. And I think over the last few years, I think it's starting to flip more and more into that, really revenue minded CMO more and more as markets get a little bit scarier, and efficiency is the name of the game. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and this was interesting, kind of hearing about your background and some of your thoughts, was I think over the course of, you can call it, 5 to 10 years, marketers and business development reps and sales, we kind of got obsessed with this idea of personalization. And if we personalize the message to the right audience, that is going to help them take action. And I think it worked in the early days, almost as like a novelty. People said, "Oh, these people get me; they understand me," but it didn't quite live up to the expectation we all had. It wasn't quite as effective, and certainly not effective right now. At least what I'm seeing, I think every email I get is personalized, but I still blank it out. Um, what do you think have been the main challenges that have kind of hindered effective personalization in marketing in the past?
Well, there's a couple different aspects to what you're talking about. One is just the absolute exhaustion of individuals who are constantly targeted by a company to buy their products and services. And in B2B SaaS, obviously, we talk a ton about inbound and outbound. And inbound is where you're being reactive because somebody started on a purchase cycle. Outbound is obviously where we're being very proactive and trying to engage with a customer who may not be in a buying cycle and create a need. And just a lot of companies have gotten really good at outbound. And so they're creating these personalized messages, but I have 70,000 unread emails in my email box and I get 15, 20 LinkedIn messages every day. So that just the amount of information, regardless of whether it's personalized or not, is overwhelming for me. And so there's a point in time element. There's the intent solutions like 6sense and demand base that are trying to help us do a better job of focusing our outbound efforts and personalization efforts onto a company who's showing signs of actually purchasing. We're seeing extended consideration timeframes. We're seeing bigger buying committees because budgets are really tight. And so when revenue is a concern, you get more people involved in the decision-making process and it takes a little bit longer. So personalization is certainly one way to get attention, but it is not a silver bullet. It does not fix the challenge of getting in front of prospects and helping them make a buying decision.
It's interesting, and I think right now a lot of people think that the silver bullet might be coming in the form of AI, and we're seeing a lot of hype, in rev tech, but it seems like everyone's got some sort of email generation AI tool now coming online. Do you think that AI is going to help us address some of these challenges around personalization, or are we going to maybe add to the noise?
Yeah, I do think that what AI will do for us that has not been possible before is personalization at scale. Some of the examples we were talking about before, it very much is human intelligence. It requires account research. It requires going through a bunch of different tools. And as intelligent as some of these solutions could be, they never really could bring all of the intelligence together and actually craft the message, send the message on various channels, and automate really even much of the cadences all the way down to leaving a voicemail. They would try, but there was still a heavy human lift in the personalization. I think that's where AI is going to bring a lot of scale. AI can automatically research an account. It can automatically find contacts. It can even, to a certain extent, depending on how comfortable you are as an organization, actually send emails or make phone calls. There was a recent example of a company that took a recording of their top sales rep and used his voice to send out voicemails at scale, and that sales rep had actually passed away. So there was some issues with using that voice in AI, and I think we're going to continue to see what are really the boundaries of AI. But is it possible? It absolutely is possible now, and how brands use it and how consumers respond to it, I think we have yet to see. But I do think AI will make personalization at scale wildly possible. Yes.
Mhm. So I actually read, I think this was last week. So the FCC actually announced that calls made with voices generated by AI will be essentially illegal now, which is a super interesting shift. And who knows where that ends if it starts with calls and then bleeds in. Is that going to bleed into email? And it'll be interesting to see how that play out. But that's an interesting example of someone being, you know, unfortunately deceased and using their likeness and call.
And I think regulation is just going to continue to play catch up. And that, I mean, I don't know. Another popular story was the CFO deepfake and $26 million in funds wired because someone impersonated a CFO on Zoom. And so that's where, I mean, this technology really is giving us tremendous possibilities to change how we engage and interact in digital ways at scale, but it does also have some definite downsides. And I'm glad to see that there are regulations coming in fairly quickly to help us navigate our way through this.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna need those, or we get into a very weird world very fast.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's always fun to kind of like, pontificate about like where we're going in the future, and these very much like, 5-10 year vision of all this, crazy artificial intelligence. But a question I like to ask, executives that I talk to is like, what immediate changes are you observing in your own marketing strategies with kind of the integration of AI? Like, are you currently using it? In what capacity? Are you still sort of testing the waters?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I work for an AI company, and so we've been had AI at our foundation for over 15 years. We had some of the original Google engineers who were working on their AI actually create our search product, and so our company is very, very comfortable and AI forward. And so we have our own LLM and Gen AI applications that we rolled out to the world last year. And so our marketing team has AI very much at the center, not just of the product that we market, but also the tools that we use. And so from things like it's exponentially made storyboarding faster. I can't draw a stick figure, but now I can tell AI, here's kind of an example image that could help me communicate to my design team what I'm looking for. You hear a ton of people talking about it's a great content starter. It helps organize my ideas. Tools like Tomy and Beautiful.ai, who actually help organize structured notes into a presentation format. Ad copy, just say, give me 50 ideas that sound like this, and then you can run them through tools like Upside to do audience testing. There's just a tremendous amount of efficiency that comes on the back side of, or on the back end, excuse me, of the marketing organization. I think where we continue to see slower adoption is where you're actually using AI in the front end to communicate with your customers and to actual have engagements with people that are representations of your brand. And I think that's right. I think starting internally, more on the back end, really understanding what kind of responses are going to be generated before you take the leap to begin using it to communicate with customers. I think that's where most companies I interact with today are. And certainly Bloomreach is as well.
Yeah. I feel like that makes sense. That's just a high stakes game to have AI interfacing with your customers. Like that's the most important connection that you have. So working internally is the way to go as we still build and get more comfortable. So you dropped a few different technologies in there. Beautiful.ai. Do you want to quickly just run through of those ones, kind of a few of your favorites and what they're doing for you internally?
Yeah, I think the one we hear most often and the one we're the most excited about is Clay, and that's where there is some actual messaging automation and contact enrichment and account research. Our team actually built some AI automation for account research using just their ChatGPT 4 paid license, where we're doing account research and uploading that through Slack in a HubSpot interface. We use a lead scoring tool that called Mad Kudu that has a heavy amount of AI based functionality that they're continuing to develop. I'll say I'm actually surprised that HubSpot has not come out with some more AI functionality, which has caused us to start looking a little bit more at our tech stack. I think some of those really big infrastructural MarTech companies are finally at a place where they might potentially be disrupted because you see these entrants like Beautiful, like Clay, coming out of nowhere and having pretty significant impacts in a short period of time.
I think it's coming through the HubSpot ecosystem. I think it's going to come, and I think they could be a big winner because they have such a horizontal platform, and there's so many I guess nodes of action taking place in their systems. If you're using like HubSpot sales and their marketing automation and their CRM, since they have so much of that data, it should inform, a pretty strong LLM if they're able to um, catch up. So they might steal back some of that market share, but we'll see how
I
they
think
do.
so. I'm a huge HubSpot fan, longtime HubSpot fan. So looking forward to see what they develop. Definitely.
Yeah, you and me both bullish on that ecosystem. I think they're going to have a great next 10, 15 years. They're positioned to do well. Okay, so that's State of the Union now. Now it is fun to look forward. And where do you see the future of AI in marketing heading? Because it's going to get strange. Do you think some job functions are going to go away? Are we going to need less marketers? Are we going to need more? Is the job and function of marketing going to shift? How do you think about it as a CMO?
Yeah, I think marketing has already been going through a shift. I think we really moved from, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We really moved from, this is obviously some time ago, but we moved from really being brand and visual into more of the scientific, math-based demand approach and product marketing, really, particularly in the SaaS space, having a way to tell a technical story, but very much still through the lens of, as we saw PLG develop, and what do you do to convert with your actual product, and that does take a more technical lens of marketing. And I think what AI is going to do is really automate a lot of that and force us back to our storytelling roots for differentiation. So as a demand gen marketer, the push back to having a really good emotional story to have competitive differentiation is a little bit uncomfortable because it's not where I come from. But I've had to get really, really good, and I have some product marketing in my background. I had to pull back out, dust off those skills to get back to the storytelling, the what's different about our product, how are we differentiated, but also connect with emotion, because that is something where AI is not going to be able to replicate a lot of the unique essence. And I think that is absolutely, we're going to see scale, and we should. When you think about the amount of content that gets created in videos and emails and all those things, let's scale as much of it as we can. But we're going to still need very, very strong marketers to capture the essence of what makes a company different.
Yeah, I like that future. It feels like we'll be able to automate a lot of the things that maybe are not quite as fun, but were super important, and get back to the creative roots of what I think draws a lot of marketers to the profession in the first place. And of course, then you have to learn all this other stuff, but it seems like a lot of that will be automated, um, which is cool. And then humans get to spend more time doing what humans do really well, which is think creatively, and inspire, tell stories. So that's, I think, a good thing for the profession. Speaking of storytelling, this is a story based podcast. We love when people share parts of their journey. I think as humans, we can learn a lot more from someone's story than just someone telling us best practices and things. And you've been through a lot. You've navigated being an exec during an acquisition. That's a super pivotal time, and I imagine you learned a ton. And then just like through the course of the last 15 years, we've had, digital explode, and now we have the advent of AI and this kind of ever-changing landscape that you've had to deal with. And I would love to just bring you back to a point in time that was just a really pivotal moment in your journey. And if there's anything specific that sort of stands out for you, and then we'll tease with what you kind of learned from the experience as well.
Yeah, I have a story that, and if we if this gets too personal, we can always take another approach. But I was a teen mom and didn't graduate from college, and kind of fell into marketing. A man named Michael Alicia was willing to give me an opportunity to work with him part time and help me manage my daycare situation, and actually work in the nonprofit industry, and would send mailers and control packages and get that get that data back and then do a test on, did the stickers work better or did the lickable stamps work better? Which package helped us get more donations? And that was the first time I really understood or had exposure to the psychology of marketing and promotions, and I just fell in love with it at that time. But every step of my journey consistently throughout my story has been someone meeting me where I'm at in my struggle as a human being and allowing that to be part of my story. So like Michael brought me in and really helped me learn what marketing was and invested in me as an individual. I really would never have been able to get into this field without that opportunity. And several years later, my middle son had a lot of health issues, and I again had a very supportive president of our company who allowed me to take a significant amount of time off to be in the hospital with my son. And that allowed me to come back with this renewed sense of desire to make him successful. I wanted to see him as an individual succeed because he'd really been there and helped provide for me and my family and gave me the space to take time. And so it's not as much a marketing lesson as it is how thankful I've been that this career and the journey that I've been on has been met with so many genuine people, and that along the way, I learned a lot about the psychology of people and products and connection, and just not only been mentored by, but had the opportunity to mentor a lot of amazing people. And so I think marketing as a function and particularly B2B SaaS is just an outstanding industry and career. And I've felt very lucky to have fallen into these opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that, and it's certainly not too personal. I think it's important to share these stories of where we come from and the opportunities that we're given. I couldn't imagine how difficult that must have been when you're a teen mom and figuring out everything and getting this job. I think it's one of the cool things that's drawn me to the sales and marketing profession is because it's so results oriented. You can come from any background, and if you're willing to put in the work, the landscape's also changing all the time. So that gives opportunity for people that are willing to invest in learning those changes, kind of the upper hand. Um, and, from my experience, it takes genuine people to attract genuine people in their life. So these people that, took a chance on you obviously saw something and it's paid off to see the incredible career you've had. How has that informed now that you're in this leadership position, how you look at hiring folks maybe on your team?
Yeah. I love a crazy resume. Exactly as you said, I think this is a lot more what you just talked about, what we've experienced in this industry and how um, shifting our foundation is. The type of people that I can't agree with you more, do really well in sales and marketing are the ones that are there to learn and change and evolve. And it's not a textbook, it's not a playbook. You haven't done this before. No one has. So knowing that you can bring someone in who's okay to fail, like, and get up the next day and say, I'm going to figure it, that just means I'm one step closer to knowing what the unlock is and how to win. That is what is so special about this field for sure.
Totally. You could even go further. And of course, higher education is incredibly important. Degrees are incredibly important. I'm also a college dropout for the record. But you could even think like it's a very linear process, right? Like getting a degree. You learn this, and then 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 you hopefully have the outcome at the end where that thinking doesn't really serve you that well in sales and marketing. You can always be, well, how do I just get to the outcome faster? Is there a creative way to skip these little things that I'm supposed to do? And that is really rewarded in our profession. And so I'm with you. I know still to this day, one of the best hires I've ever made, who's now, I believe he's a VP of BD, or maybe he's a senior director of BD, was at the time in construction, like digging ditches, but he had this really like kind of interesting entrepreneurial background. He was like selling newspapers at one point, and I could just tell he had this hunger. And as soon as he got an opportunity, like from day one, he was just all in, and it just been incredible to see what he's been able to do.
Yeah, those are the kind of people an old CEO of mine used to say, where are you going to put your $100? Like, if you had $100, where would you put it? And every single time I'm going to put it on the fighter, the person who shows up, who has passion, who wants to win, because they're the ones that are going to figure it out.
Absolutely, for sure. And have you found now, you know, you're on this podcast and you're sharing your story, but I feel like there's a lesson in storytelling there too, just in your own personal background. It was that at some point it flips, and some of these challenges we've been through almost become our superpower, on how we lead people and how we access opportunities. And it also showcases other people that it's possible. Do you kind of lean into that, some of the struggles that you've had to inspire your team?
I think that's what's really difficult about people with stories, if I can say, like ours, where there's this thing that you're expected to have, like a college degree, and you don't. That there's a period in your career where, rightfully so, you keep it very hidden, and it does almost create, I don't wanna use the word shame because that might be too strong, but there certainly is, even still, some shame that I feel for not having done things and arrived in the right way. But then you also develop this, as you do find success, a little bit of this chip on your shoulder also, like, I didn't have to follow the rules. I didn't have to go the right way, and so I'm gonna continue just kinda breaking the mold. And, my current CEO, Raj Dedada, after the acquisition, I was the CMO at Exponea, and Bloomreach acquired us, and they, at the time, their marketing team rolled up into the chief strategy officer. And so I'm assuming that I'm gonna get the opportunity to lead the marketing organization. And Raj, said, who I did not know very well at that time, said, "I feel like you have too much of a chip on your shoulder, and I'm not really ready to trust the marketing team in your hands." He will say he didn't say it exactly that way, but I will say he did. And so I was pissed. I was like, I can't believe, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? What does he know about me? And
Sounds like
it took
someone with a chip on their shoulder would say.
it was. It was. And it took time, and he agreed to mentor me and work with me, and if it didn't work out in a year, he'd help me find another job. And ultimately I had to eat some humble pie and recognize, like, okay, I can see where I've developed some defenses over the years of out of a genuine need to be protective, because I had been refused job opportunities. I had been told I wasn't qualified. I had been uninvited from rooms. And so over time, what now I can look back at as a vulnerable part of my story, it did create a harder shell that ultimately could have held me back if I hadn't listened to Raj's advice and accepted his mentorship through that.
Yeah. I think that's an important lesson for all of us to learn, regardless of background. Of like, I talk about it quite a bit, of like switching your fuel from almost like fear. It's like fear based. It's like, imposter syndrome and trying to prove people wrong, to more of like a passion, love based. You're just like doing it because you want to inspire and you want to uplift people around you. But not everyone makes that shift. What were some of the things that helped you alleviate that chip? Like, how did you work through that?
Raj really was pretty transformational for me in that I have a blog post that I think, or LinkedIn post that I did, where we were engaged in a tough feedback session, and I started to cry, and he just stayed in it. I don't know if it's his wife Sangeeta or his daughter that that trained him, but he stayed in it, and he allowed me to cry and have emotion and be kind of broken almost, but that it was okay. We were going to continue to have the conversation, and we were going to continue to have some tough feedback, but all in the effort of making me better. And he has this saying of, his job is to have a high level of expectation, but also a high level of support. And I feel that very consistently through him. And so I think there is a foundation of the person that is mentoring you, or that is really your leader. If you don't have a very strong foundation of trust, it can be a lot more difficult to be vulnerable because you don't know that it's going to be okay. And so I do think that has been a big thing for me to feel like I can be open and honest and And he challenges me a lot on saying, like when I'm presenting, he'll say, it feels like you're trying to prove that you're right. And I want you to move beyond trying to prove that you're right and just come in knowing that you have the answer. You have the backup if you need it, but come in with a strong opinion and know that you know what you're doing. So that has been a really important relationship.
That's great. High level of expectation and high level of support. I feel like that is the mark of a good leader. And yeah, I think it can be this tendency when things in business get overly emotional that it's like, okay, we should shelf this conversation and come back to this with a more rational brain, because people get uncomfortable with emotions. But like sometimes that emotion is the most human part of us, and business is a very human endeavor. So like diving into those things and being comfortable having those conversations, that doesn't mean we need to cry every meeting that we have, but when those strong emotions arise, like stick with it. And that's kudos to him for hanging in there.
Yeah. And I'm very, very passionate. I love this company. I love what we do. I love our customers. I love our team. I want us to win. I genuinely don't believe there's a better company out there. And so I bring all of that into the meetings and discussions we have. And those are the people I want to work with. So bring the emotion.
Yeah. I love it. Can you this is an aside, but do you think you can screen for passion when you hire people? Because I'm wired the same way. I'm a very passionate person. I'm lucky to be surrounded by very, very passionate people, and when I'm around passionate people, I'm so energized all day. But I don't know how it happens. I don't know if it's luck, or have you found a way to screen for passion?
There is a definite energy that comes off of somebody who you can tell cares deeply. It's certainly not foolproof, but there's a different way that people respond and a different way they lean in and talk about things when they're excited, or a different energy to somebody who just needs a job versus somebody who is, ride or die. And I do think work-life balance is super important. But I tell people all the time, my work-life balance leans a lot more towards work than life now, because I have 3 kids and they're all out of the house. And so I have a lot of time to do work things. But that's different for everybody. But the point being, like, what I do is super, super important. It takes up a ton of thinking time and effort and energy. And I want to care a lot about it because I spend so much of my time doing it. I do think that there is an energy that you can get off of somebody to tell that difference.
Yeah. It's just sometimes a hard thing to put your finger on, but I feel you. It's like almost like a feeling you get in your like nervous system, of like this person cares, which is cool. And I agree. What I've always thought of work-life balance is like you got to look at it on, I guess, more like the macro level of like there's seasons that you'll be more optimized for life, and there'll be seasons you're more optimized for work. And sometimes it can be years that you're kind of all in on work, or maybe you need some time to take care of family and friend relationships. But I don't think if you're searching on like a daily or weekly time scale for balance, I think that can be tough.
Yeah, one of the best ways that I deprioritize life is when someone tells me that I should exercise more, and I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm just gonna keep working."
I have our platform director, Paul, is just a maniac. He works way too hard, and I try and pull him into the gym, but he it's all prioritization, right? You can make time if you want. And it's like, no, I got to do this, I got to do that. And shout out Paul, he's amazing. So keep doing what you're doing. But all right, I want to go to a listener question, and thank you everyone for sending great questions. But I wanted to get your take on this because I think you'll have a great take, and it's kind of a funny question. It feels like almost like a marketing meme. I'm a marketing leader, and I have just been tasked with a full company rebrand, only a few months into the job. Any tips on how best to navigate this? And I feel like every marketer that's listening right now can probably relate to some form of this, of their CEO coming in, got a new job, and now we need a new logo, we need a new messaging, we need a new website, we need to do this. And and it all kind of comes together at once. What are your suggestions on how best to kind of navigate this?
Yeah, my first question would be, if you're a marketing leader, who in the world is dictating to you to do the rebrand? And if it is the CEO, start with a brand preference survey. Like, really understand your market and verify that he or she is right. Because the worst thing you could do is say yes, do a rebrand, and go through the time and effort and absolute shitstorm that we all know that that is, and ultimately not make an impact. And that would be detrimental to your own job and to the organization to create that much of a distraction. So I would absolutely start with understanding, does our market know who we are? And would this have a negative impact on us if we did this? If the answers to both of those things are no, the market doesn't know who we are and it would not have a detrimental impact, then have a great time, because rebranding is a lot of fun and something that you have a lot of ownership over, and it can have a tremendous impact. Bloomreach, we went through a rebrand when we were acquired by when Exponea was acquired by Bloomreach. I was able to work with our team to lead the rebranding efforts, and we're in the middle of our repositioning efforts post the explosion of Gen AI. We're doing a tremendous amount of market research to make sure that we are aligned with what people are looking for and that our brand actually does tell a good story and make an impact. But it is a lot of fun, and it is just genuinely something that I feel like years from now I'll be able to look back and say, there's my thumbprint, my fingerprint on Bloomreach's success.
I love that. It is like why I think folks become marketers, is that feeling of like you get a blank canvas, so to speak. But to your first point, which I thought was super important, like validate that this is needed. What are some of the things that folks can do? So, like in this case, I'm assuming, I don't know, they didn't say, but a smaller company, will say like a startup, maybe not a ton of resources. You get tasked with this. What are some things that you could do to test that hypothesis of, okay, a rebrand is worth the time, effort, and it will be successful?
One of my favorite tools, I should stop telling it because I feel like I'm just going to get charged more as they become more popular. But one of my favorite tools is Winter. And I feel like everybody now kind of knows who they are, but they're great. And it's not expensive in the grand scheme of things. You get results pretty quickly. You can be very specific. It is qualitative though, so that's where you run a little bit of a risk. But you get 30 panelists to respond in a short period of time. You can do a brand preference survey, or you can actually test messaging and copy, or you can ask for feedback from a competitive perspective. And that's a great, really quick, not expensive way. I do think, especially if you're going to go through the effort of doing a rebrand, you should invest in a full quant study with a company like Qualtrics and actually build out, in 300 responses. How do you view us in the market? Unprompted responses to, when you think of this, which brands do you think first? And really, really understand where you show up before you because even if you do it all internally and you have an amazing graphic designer and the rebrand doesn't cost you agency money, the time and effort and distraction, updating all of the old materials, making sure that the sales team is using the new brand stuff, throwing away all of the trade show assets and all the things that have been created, there is certainly a cost to rebrand. So I would invest at the beginning to make sure you're making the right decision.
Great advice. Invest a little bit up front to potentially save yourself a lot from going through the whole rigmarole. I think that's great. Great advice, and big fan of Winter and Peep. That team is awesome. All right. As we wrap up, and this has been great, Amanda, thank you so much for all the incredible advice, being vulnerable, sharing your story. But the final two questions I always ask, they remain the same, and they are intentionally vague, so you can take them any way you want. First question is, what is one widely held belief that revenue leaders have today that you think is bullshit or no longer serving us?
I'm probably going to get filleted for saying this, and I even hate saying it and admitting it, but marketing does not generate pipeline. That is not ultimately what marketing does. And as a demand gen marketer through and through, I hate saying that. But at the end of the day, we create opportunities for pipeline to be generated, and there has to be an understanding of the customer journey and content that works and topics that matter and an understanding of the persona inside of the revenue organization in order to convert those eyeballs and that interest that marketing creates into revenue. And certainly there are opportunities in PLG to have marketing actually create pipeline. But even then, inside of the product, you've got to have really good prompts and onboarding and journeys and workflows and conversion opportunities so that it's much more than just marketing. But I do hate saying that.
Well, that's what this section is for those hot takes. I guess going a step further. So if that is truth, marketing doesn't create pipeline. How does your, I guess, mentality have to shift as a marketer then, if that is true?
Yeah, you really are a support function. You really genuinely are there to support the sales organization in converting pipeline, but then also converting it into one ARR. And so being a really, really great partner, being the research arm, being the insights arm, um, providing day in the life of the customer information. We have an amazing win-loss program so that we can help our team better understand like where the market fit opportunities are. Providing a view of where the future is headed and how sales individuals and SDRs can educate themselves in order to be a genuine resource inside of the sales process. That is the job of the marketer. And so to mentally shift yourself from I have a pipeline target, which to be clear, our KPI in marketing is pipeline. So I don't think you should shy away from that as a KPI. You ultimately are working with teams to create that outcome. But you shouldn't have an expectation that your job ends there, that it's really a support infrastructure for the revenue team.
I think that's a great shift in perspective, and I like it. I like it. I know from my time at Outreach and being part of the marketing organization and being very close with kind of our enterprise and strategic selling team. One of the things we did really well on this kind of strategic engagement division we built was the ability to do like real like in-time marketing. So we'd work with like our strategic AEs and they'd be like, yeah, we have these like 3 open ops in Chicago, and they're multi-million-dollar deals. It's like, okay, well, do they have stuff in common? Do you think they could learn from each other? Why don't we do a dinner next week and invite them in Chicago, or do these little like really ad hoc things that were largely driven from the sales organization and facilitated by marketing to push people through funnel and really being that support function as you mentioned, which I think can be tough when we build out this whole year-long marketing strategy and we're in our own kind of world trying to execute against it and build pipeline, but thinking yourself as a true partner across the entire funnel is great. Okay, and then final question. What is one tactic or strategy that's working for you right now? It's hard out there. People are struggling. A lot of people looking for answers. Any tactic, strategy that's just surprisingly been working for you well?
Yeah, we really have invested, double down on this storytelling element, kind of going back to our roots. And I mean, again, as a very long time demand gen marketer, it was difficult for me to get on board with with a more storytelling component. But we did a tremendous amount of research of our customer base and this kind of emotional, in other words, is an agency that we use to actually help us do some of this customer research and come up with this more emotional campaign. But I don't even want to call it a campaign because the sentiment that came from our customers was that our product, our technology makes them feel like they can do anything. And they all of a sudden had all the data they needed and all the channels that they needed. And they were able to communicate with their customers in a way they couldn't do it before. And so we were able to encapsulate this feeling into a phrase called "Be Limitless." And the way that that campaign has come to life and the way that the stories of our customers have come to life, the way that it's resonated, I have never in my life, I've done hundreds of thousands of campaigns and events. I've actually had customers and prospects message me on LinkedIn and say, this campaign feels like me. And so that has been just incredible, is to see the power of connecting that emotion and that story to the people that we're engaging with on a daily basis. And it's been very exciting.
Very cool. Yeah. And almost like we're all chasing product market fit, but it sounds like you found like story market fit. And anytime we find that fit, it's such an exciting feeling because you can just feel it. It shows up in the data, but it's like a visceral feeling as revenue professionals that like care about that. It's like, oh shit, we this is working, and people are really resonating. That's cool.
It is. Yeah, it's like you always want people's eyes to light up when you're telling your story about, but we're in B2B SaaS, like whose eyes are gonna whose eyes are gonna light up. And so it's cool to be seeing that in real time.
I love it. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for jumping on today. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. Where can folks follow along with your journey, with the Bloomreach journey? And then maybe final thing is, do you have any open recs you want to plug? There's a lot of folks that listen to this that might be looking to join an awesome leader like yourself.
We do. We have tons of career opportunities. So you can check out more about Bloomreach at bloomreach.com, and then also check out our career opportunities while there. But also feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me, message me. I try to be as responsive as I can on LinkedIn for people who are interested in learning more about the space or career advice in general. I do have, like I said, 70,000 unopened emails, so LinkedIn's probably better, but would love to connect.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, Amanda, thank you again. And for all our listeners that hung out with us today, we appreciate you. I always say it, listening is one thing. Executing is different. You got to take these lessons, put them through the context of your business, and hopefully apply some of them to help grow your business and your career. And we will see you next week.